Good morning, everyone. Thanks for taking the time to come out of your day to join us today. In today's webinar, we're going to be covering NetSuite in the context of manufacturing. So manufacturing is a big vertical for NetSuite. Both NetSuite and Fusion5 have many customers utilizing these capabilities across Australia and New Zealand. And as part of the context of these webinars, where we've run this webinar we we have two different webinars in this series, one covering Microsoft Dynamics Business Central and one covering Oracle NetSuite in the context of manufacturing to help you in your assessment as to which platform might work best for your manufacturing business. So, kicking off today, we're going to be introducing our panelists and follow shortly with a brief introduction to Fusion 5, who we are and how NetSuite fits into our business. We'll then give you a brief overview of NetSuite for manufacturing and the different editions that are available and the type of functionality that you can expect from each of them. We'll then move on to have a discussion with Bernadette Smith from KiwiCare, one of our incredible customers using NetSuite for manufacturing, and follow on with a demonstration of the platform. If you have any questions, please pop them into the chat as they arise, and we will cover them as quickly as we can. So on our panel today, we have myself, Joel Mickelson. I'm the NetSuite Sales Manager for Australia. And also joining us, we have Janine Eastwood, one of our business development representatives based over in New Zealand. Then taking us through our NetSuite demonstration today will be Chloe Patterson, so one of our solution architects for NetSuite. And on the call, we also have Megha Kant, our Chief Technology Officer for NetSuite. And joining us also from our fantastic customer KiwiCare, we have Bernadette Smith to discuss Bernadette's experiences with NetSuite for manufacturing, implementation, and acquisition of additional businesses and how they've all been rolled into NetSuite. So who is Fusion5? Some of you may not know us, so a brief introduction to who we are and where we fit into the Oracle NetSuite ecosystem is probably appropriate at this point. We're a business applications and innovation and technology company whose goal is to empower our clients to innovate, to profit, and to grow. And to do this, we design solutions utilizing a combination of some of the best tools and platforms on the market, such as Oracle NetSuite, and in addition to other software applications, which we have also designed and created specifically for businesses in the ANZ space. So, supporting our applications business, we also have an innovation and integrations pillar whose focus is on utilizing cutting edge technology, such as in the area of artificial intelligence, machine learning, Internet of Things, as well as supporting our integration with other platforms. We also have a managed services pillar that supports our clients through their entire technology ecosystem from desktop environments through to hosting, endpoint security, and help desk. And we aim to be a complete technology and applications partner for all of our clients. We also offer a full range of business applications, so from everything from ERP, human resources and payroll, customer engagement, corporate performance and data management, which is a huge area moving forward these days, and service risk and asset management, and of course, a comprehensive implementation and support service program across the full range of these applications as well. We've experienced 18 years of growth now. We now have over 600 employees across 9 offices in Australia and New Zealand. It just seems every time we do one of these webinars, that number seems to increase by a factor of 40 or so, well, by 40 or so. And we support over 1,000 customers that we partner with over the ANZ region. Today, we're focusing on Oracle NetSuite, and Fusion5 is the largest NetSuite partner in the JPAC region, and we're honored to be recognized as Partner of the Year in 2021. We're proud to have been Oracle NetSuite's JPAC Partner of the Year now for 6 continuous years, and we definitely have the most passionate and experienced NetSuite team in the region. If you have any questions about Fusion5, our partnerships, or any areas that we can assist your business in, please just pop them into the chat and we can follow you up at the end of the webinar. So now we're just going to take a reasonably brief moment to review the various manufacturing features that NetSuite brings to the table. If you've got any questions along the way, please make sure you pop them into the chat and we'll endeavor to address them. There's a little bit of content following here, so there is quite a lot of capability that NetSuite has in relation to manufacturing. So I'll just attempt to cover it as succinctly as possible. So NetSuite's basic manufacturing allows, I suppose, the enrichment of the item and inventory records to include things like assembly items, and that is items which consume base components and other charges such as labor, packaging, consumables, etc., to form a completed assembly item. And the costs of all of the components automatically roll into the finished goods, and they can be taken into consideration. You can take into consideration charges and costs such as overheads, labor, machine run, power, packaging, really any other categories that you want to be able to track and recover costs for. The module work orders and assemblies also allows you to generate work orders to communicate to production what you want made, when you want it, the components that you need to utilize, or if you sell configurable products, what the features and options are. Actual production dates from these work orders are automatically calculated by default for related work order transactions. And that enables you to track your actual production dates a lot better to assess your production plans, identify any problems, optimize your production runs, and you can also include work order instructions with your work order to help your production team understand the process of your assembly. Also, with documents such as the work order traveler, it's a document that's printed out and handed over to production to communicate the production plan. This document can also be used for production to feed back how much raw material they actually consume during the manufacturing process. And you can compare that to what was expected, just to ensure that you're keeping your bills and materials as up to date as possible. By creating a work order, NetSuite automatically commits inventory to production when the work order is created and gives a more accurate view of what the current inventory status is. The assembly build transaction is the point at which the components are actually consumed and the finished good is created. It's sometimes referred to as backflushing. It's important to note that assembly build can be completed either against a work order, or you can actually just directly run an assembly build as a standalone transaction if you're working in a lean environment or a work orderless environment. Work orderless environment? Sure, why not? By adding the WIP and routings module, we move into complex or semi-advanced manufacturing capabilities of NetSuite. You know, a few years ago, this was known as NetSuite Advanced Manufacturing, but we now have advanced manufacturing on top of that as well. So we'll call this semi-advanced for the sake of ease of reference. So adding more advanced features like location settings, whereby an assembly item can be configured to manufacture the same finished goods in a different manner based on the location. So work in process can also be assigned down to an individual location level as well. For example, it's possible that in a light manufacturing area, you might just perform a light manufacturing process, so an assembly and backflush process in one location, whereas in a main production plant, you may be introducing WIP and routing to collect labor and other overhead and run costs, etc. So NetSuite even allows for advanced bill of material settings whereby different base components can be selected for the same finished goods depending on the location in which they're manufactured. So an example might be in one location, certain subassemblies are purchased fully, built, or they could be built by another location and shipped over, and they are included as a single component in your bill of materials. Whereas in other locations, those subassemblies may need to be manufactured either by way of a phantom work order or a separate production run. It just depends on how you set that up. You have the flexibility of being able to deal with those things. Also, you may have different actual components. So in one location, for example, in Australia, you may have power transformers that sit at 240 volts with Australian plugs. Whereas for the same finished goods item in the US, you may have 110 volt transformers with US plugs, but it's actually the same product that comes at the end. So you can have a different bill of materials for the same product across multiple locations. So WIP and routing also adds work center management functionality. So this also allows tasks such as setup and pack down tasks to be performed on manufacturing stations. So we can also define manufacturing cost templates in this edition as well. And what this does is this allows the definition for the direct and indirect costs associated with operations routing, along also with the GL accounts that these costs should be posted to. So every time an operation is completed, NetSuite uses the associated cost template to provide a baseline form for the costing of that production, but still gives you access to being able to edit and maintain flexibility in that process as well. So that's just a brief overview of sort of standard and what we call semi-advanced manufacturing and some of the processes there. And we will be showing some of these processes in the demo after this. In relation to advanced manufacturing, this is where we start to see some additional MRP MES, and capacity capabilities being added to the suite. So NetSuite Advanced Manufacturing provides rough cut capacity planning to ensure that your business isn't over purchasing or over releasing in excess of materials. And this really helps you keep your operations as lean as possible. With this module, we also move away from the concept of infinite production capacity and start to respect your company's finite ability to produce goods. So businesses can move from mid-tier manufacturing up to advanced manufacturing at any point just by implementing some of these advanced capabilities. So finite capacity planning does require significantly enriched bills of materials, run timings, production routings, etc. And what this does is this allows NetSuite to forward schedule your production based on your plant's capacity to produce. So not just assuming that you can just produce ad infinitum, but understanding that you can only produce a certain number of goods every day and giving you the ability to plan and schedule what your production looks like into the future. Interruptions, stockouts, or anything else that is impacting the normal operation can be also factored into the production schedules and readjusted as well. If sickness or illness, machine breakdown, whatever, you can rerun your finite capacity schedule, and you can keep your available to promise dates up to date and communicate any changes with your customers. So advanced manufacturing also introduces production tables and the capability to introduce production instructions per routing or step, as well as first in, first out materials issuance for raw and batch controlled items. This is really important if you have a high volume of manufacturing. You don't want to have to be manually selecting batch items for every component that you're producing. FIFO materials issuances really does significantly reduce the overhead needed to track your production stock. And we also introduce support for co-products and detailed recipe formulation, which is especially useful for process and raw and food and bev manufacturers. So then this moves into a different direction. We won't cover this too much today, but we also have the capability of dealing with a mass customization manufacturing environment as well. That is, you configure each product that you manufacture for your client specifications. So NetSuite has this process incredibly well covered with the ability for salespeople-led product creation, utilizing your pre-programmed product design rules and including product visualizations during the product configuration process. Your team can walk your clients through the process of configuring their products, whether it's as simple as building out a customer computer system or a custom computer system, or as complex as designing a motorhome to customer specifications with the placement of whether it's a single or a double bed or toilets, or whether they get the bunk or the kitchen in a different location. NetSuite's CPQ engine has the ability to create the product, respect all the design rules, price it accordingly, automatically create the bill of materials associated with that product, including production routings, and send the product to be manufactured to your shop floor. So significant advantages here. With the incredibly powerful rules engine, you can instill your production configuration knowledge into your application, allowing non-technical resources to correctly configure and specify the components required in your final product based on your design rules. So as the products are moved through, available and unavailable options will change, ensuring that your team can't make invalid configuration choices as they're building up the product specifications, which significantly streamlines the quote to sale process, removing the requirements for engineering staff to validate final products and bills of materials. So we will run a separate webinar in the future covering just this. As I'm sure you can see, there's plenty of areas to discuss around mass customization and manufacturing capabilities. So which industries does Oracle NetSuite fit for? Which manufacturing industry specifically? Generally speaking, I'm sure you can see by the breadth of capability we have, if you're a process or a discrete manufacturer, we've got your requirements pretty well covered. For fully automated production plants or really high volume production plants, we may need to take a closer look at your requirements to determine whether or not NetSuite's the right fit there, or something a little bit more bespoke might be a better fit for those. But we certainly have manufacturers covered in many, many different industries and many, many different areas. So if you want to have a chat about how NetSuite might fit into your particular business and your particular manufacturing requirements, we'd certainly love to hear from you. So that was just a little bit of a high level overview of what NetSuite does out of the box, what the different editions of NetSuite does, and where those different capabilities, where the demarcation for those different capabilities comes in from standard to mid to advanced manufacturing. Like an opportunity now and thank Bernadette Smith from Kiwi Care for jumping on today and having a little bit of a chat with us um, to have a chat about some of her experiences in implementing NetSuite and having NetSuite in place now with Kiwi Care for a number of years. So, Bernadette, I'd love you to come on camera if you can. Thank you.
Thanks, Joel.
No worries at all. I'm just going to stop presenting to make it a little bit easier for us to focus. So just really keen to hear about your experience as a senior leader within your sector, covering a little bit about the challenges that are facing your industry at the present from your perspective. So just just keen to get your thoughts on that.
So we predominantly work in the DIY garden commercial pest control space, and a lot of our products that we have out in the market are obviously manufactured, and we don't want to keep a lot of stock on hand, so it's just-in-time inventory. So for us, it's really important that, you know, when we're looking at the forecasting for products and what we're busy manufacturing at any point in time, we're not manufacturing more than we can hold at any point in time, but
Yep.
also give us the ability to pivot really quickly when we need to. You know, when you got the demand that all of a sudden changes when a customer purchases a lot of goods. COVID is a beautiful example of how that all worked. You know, you've got supply chain issues at the moment with COVID, getting, you know, anything on the water at the moment. So making sure you've got the stock that you need when you need it is pivotal to any business. We've been running NetSuite now for 3 years in Kiwi Care, and I'm sure it's no surprise to hear that obviously 3 years in a row we've won New Zealand Supplier of the Award,
Oh, well
Supplier of
done.
the Year award, and that's down to being able to deliver in full on time, and that's because of the manufacturing ability that we have within NetSuite. We've done a couple of acquisitions over the last 2 years, and we're looking to do a relatively big one now this year as well. We did 2 of them on our own, so it was really easy to bring into NetSuite. And the one that we'll be doing now, July, will be a Australian business that will obviously have different local currencies as well. So we've got a multi-currency thing going on. We've got a little bit of wholesale bringing in, you know, from the other business as well. So a little bit of a change from manufacturing, but we do still have a small amount of manufacturing that'll be done by local suppliers. So same, but a little bit different. And we're exploring obviously the MRP function within NetSuite as well when we bring on this new entity. And that'll just give us the capability to be able to forecast. You know, we're using Excel spreadsheets at the moment, which is obviously not ideal. So to be able to bring that into the system and have purchase orders generated, work orders generated, all of that through the advanced manufacturing module is just gold for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure that's going to save a lot of time. So there's been a couple of really interesting things that you mentioned there. One of them, just out of curiosity, what system were you on before you implemented NetSuite?
So we were on a Credo prior
Yep.
to NetSuite, and the company, the entity that we're moving over at the moment is coming from Pronto.
Right.
Pronto is a server-based program, and
Hmm.
it was invaluable to have NetSuite at the same time as well. Our KiwiCare side of the business is on NetSuite already. Being a cloud-based program, it was really easy to up and leave and move from home, work
Yeah.
from home.
Yeah.
But with Pronto, as you very well know, when you've got a VPN that you've got to connect to and you've got this amount of information going through a very small VPN tunnel, things lag, things take time. So a cloud-based system was something that we wanted to move forward with, hence the reason why we're moving from Pronto to NetSuite over and above, obviously, all the other benefits that we've seen over the last 3 years.
Yeah, and you mentioned that you've already made a couple of acquisitions as well. So, what was the process of actually getting those new companies and sort of rolling them into your NetSuite environment? How did you find that process?
Very, very easy. We obviously used Fusion5 when we did our initial integration from Credo, but obviously we did a bit of learnings through that
Mm.
process, and we were able to relatively easily move in 2 smaller entities into NetSuite. But we at the moment have 3 different instances of, well, 1 instance, but 3 different entities under the main company, and now we'll be adding another 2 more. We'll be using Fusion5 for this next integration as well, because we just have a little bit more of a curlier
Set of
business
processes.
yes, to kind of integrate. And of course, we've got FX as well, which is not what we're used to in the NetSuite instance that we currently run. So we're using Fusion5 for all those little nitty-gritty things. But as far as uploading the last 2 entities, we did it on our own and we did it with ease.
That's great. Like the ability to actually be able to turn on new instances and new businesses by yourself, having the system that's actually a finance owned and finance led platform. It's pretty rare these days, I think, and I think it's just a really good testament to how easy NetSuite is to use, and the fact that the implementation methodology is to bring you along as part of that journey as well, get you across the application, get you knowing the application, so you're not having to rely on support every time you need to do something little. So, what was behind some of the decisions when you were originally looking to get NetSuite? Um, why did you choose NetSuite? What were you looking at? What was the sort of major reason that KiwiCare originally decided to get NetSuite?
It was definitely the manufacturing side of it. We were just using the basic manufacturing module,
Yeah.
but KiwiCare is a manufacturing business. We bring in raw materials from overseas. We manufacture it on site, so we've got production schedules, all that kind of stuff going on. We've been able to use NetSuite to a certain extent, but of course, bringing out the advanced manufacturing. The advanced BOM, where you got the MRP coming through now.
Mm.
We're finding that NetSuite is a one-stop shop for us. We actually do have a third-party program that runs at the moment, and we're bringing that all in-house. Our directive from the CEO is it needs to fit into NetSuite as far as possible. So he
Yep.
understands that NetSuite can offer everything for us, and now it's just a matter of bringing it all back in. And that's what we wanted from the get-go. But
Yeah.
when you have an integration, there's always going to be things that you're going to have missed, and hindsight's always 2020. So we're taking a lot of those learnings and we'll be moving forward, but obviously the learnings have been not monumental to the point where we've had to look at other ERP systems. I mean, I've used Pronto now for 16 years.
Mm.
I'm a super user, so for me to be sold on NetSuite is a tall ask, but I am. I know it will benefit the business. I know it is fit for purpose for us, and so finding ways to work in NetSuite was really easy. The searches, the suite answers, everything is in NetSuite. You don't always have to go to Fusion5 for the answers. You can actually do it all yourself.
Yeah, that's really important thing. Like, I think you need to be able to own your platform and be able to sort of take it and sort of push it forward without having to rely on someone else to be available to do that for you as well. It's really good to hear. And it sounds like you were able to scale up your adoption of NetSuite. So start with basic manufacturing, financials, things like that, and continue to turn on additional features as your maturity with the application grew and you kind of grew into the platform. So would you say that that's kind of the experience you had from that perspective?
Absolutely right. You don't know what you need until you need it, right? And
Yeah.
that's what we've done. We found our business has grown. Like I said, we went from one entity to now 4 different ones. So we found the need for the manufacturing side of NetSuite so much more than we used to in the beginning. KiwiCare had 300 SKUs, AHM has got 3,000. So just to give you an idea of the scale with which we've grown over the last couple of years, it's monumental.
Wow. Yeah.
And the fact that NetSuite has the ability to allow us to scale up and use more modules is phenomenal.
It's great to hear. So, um, where you are now, like you've gone through this journey, you've done a number of implementations now. If you had to think about any learnings or experiences that you might be able to share with other business leaders that are sort of looking to take the steps that you've taken, what would be some of the sort of top 3 tips that you might come to mind?
I would say to obviously make sure you've got clear rules and guidelines around what it is that you want to achieve. That's really important to make sure that you're starting on the right foot. Make sure you got your standard operating procedures correct. One of the
Mm.
things that we did find was that we've got a couple of different people doing the same thing a few different ways.
Sorry, I've just
And
muted somebody that was not on mute. So apologies for that.
that's okay. So yeah, we have the NetSuite has many ways of doing one thing, and we've just found that within the business, being able to find one way to do things would be better, because it makes for um, just being able to train people better, and just always think about the fact that chances are you're going to grow.
Yeah.
So when you're implementing, always think, ahead. Our CEO is really good at that. He's always thinking ahead, and I think he did that with NetSuite. He thought, I'm going to grow. I want a big business. I want to gain lots of revenue, and I need a platform where I can do that.
Yeah.
And NetSuite has done that, with the 4 or 5 entities that we'll be having in there. We've been able to scale up without having to worry about finding a new ERP system. So it's really important to remember, if you are growing, future-proof what you're doing.
Absolutely. And I think kind of what I'm hearing there is try to adopt leading practices where possible without trying to reinvent your wheel in a new
Yeah,
system, so to speak. And giving that, I suppose, trying to divulge yourself of any technical debt you may have created from the previous systems you've had, and then be able to try to adopt as leading practices, standard implementation moving forward as you can, so that as your business continues to grow and you grow into different areas, you can utilize the functionality as it exists out of the box. Yeah,
absolutely right, Joel.
cool. Very cool. Anything else you wanted to share with us before we wrap up today?
No, I'd just like to thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to be able to share our experience at KiwiCare. We'll continue to grow, and it's nice to know that we've got partners with Oracle and Fusion5 to help us grow in the way that we want to.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks very much for making the time to be available today and have a chat with us. Really appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you.
Thanks, Bernadette. So just wanted to be able to hand over to Chloe now. So Chloe is one of our senior solutions architects based in New Zealand. Then Chloe will be running us through our NetSuite demo for today. So over to you, Chloe. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Joel. I will share my screen. Perfect, that should come through for you now. So
Sure has.
some key words that I picked up on from Joel's presentation and also the interview with Bernadette there was NetSuite as a platform, and that's going to be a big focus of our quick demonstration this afternoon of NetSuite. And another thing there that was mentioned was leading practices, and that's a real competitive advantage with a NetSuite implementation is when we provision the Manufacturing Suite Success Edition, which is what you're looking at today. It does come pre-configured based on leading practices that have been learnt over thousands of implementations across the globe from NetSuite themselves. And they have, as a result of that, designed a set of leading practices in all of the core business process areas. So starting right from scratch, right up the top with how you want to structure your NetSuite implementation, your instance in particular, if you are multinational, you've got entities in different countries, you're transacting in different currencies, making sure that that's all set up from the get-go, and also ensuring that you've got the financial segmentation to support that as well, right through to your key process areas with procurement and production, and that's especially a focus for us today. We heard about all the different features and functionalities that are available to you within the Manufacturing Edition. And while we won't be going into too much detail, what I do want to show you in the demonstration this afternoon is some of the great interfaces and ways that NetSuite pull data from lots of different process areas together so that informed decisions can be made, so that processes can be more efficient, and so that you can maintain your competitive advantage, whether that be delivery in full on time or whether it be with price, ensuring that you've got information from both your demand side of the business and your supply consolidated in one view within one platform is going to help you run more efficiently, and that is what NetSuite is here to do. So I have logged in this afternoon to my demo environment as our production manager, and I am looking at my home dashboard. So I'd be coming into work in the morning, I've had my coffee, I've sat down and I'm looking at what it is I need to action for the day and just keeping an eye on how things are ticking along. I wanted to show you a few key things on the dashboard to give you a sense of what NetSuite can offer from day one. All I did was enable this demo environment. I didn't have to configure anything that you're seeing here. That's one great benefit of implementing NetSuite. What you see in the demonstration is what you get day one of your implementation. Of course, we need to do the data migration, but once that's all in there and you're up and running, you can leverage these portlets straight away. It also helps us to navigate the system a lot easier as well, so we don't have to go hunting for information. As was mentioned, NetSuite has a lot of functionality and that can be overwhelming, but by presenting a consolidated dashboard, we can get all of those key metrics and insights from one page, which is fantastic. From a manufacturing standpoint, some of the key performance indicators that we're looking at here is all around those work orders, which is building our assembly items. So how are we tracking with respect to the value of work orders that we've completed and released? We're looking good in this instance. We've had a 61.9% uplift, but it's just a great snapshot to see how things are ticking along. What's our inventory balance looking like? How are we going from a fulfillment perspective? Are our orders going up and down? Have we got late purchase orders coming in? And of course, being able to keep an eye on that supply chain and ensuring that we know when we're going to get our orders into the warehouse so that we can build and manufacture and get those orders out the door is crucial. From a production standpoint, again, just keeping an eye on how many orders we're creating. How's that changing week to week, month to month? Are we seeing an uplift in the number of orders that are coming through, or potentially a bit of a downturn? So again, getting those quick indicators from one place and being able to keep your finger on the pulse as to how your manufacturing and production and procurement is going is a really valuable insight that you can get from day one. We're also keeping an eye on how work orders are going. So what's been released for production? Is it out on the shop floor? Have we issued our components? If we are using that work in progress perspective, have we taken the raw goods out of inventory and are we tracking them as work in progress? And so we can track those work orders at those discrete stages, when they're planned, when they're firmed, once they're released, have they been built? So it really chunks down that work order process so that we can keep an eye on it and be across it from right at the beginning when the work order's planned to the end when we've built it and it's completed. Another thing that NetSuite does allow us to manage from a inventory or item perspective is serialized and batch tracking inventory. And it is important for us to be able to keep an eye on how that serialized inventory is moving through the system. So I wanted to show you an example of a serialized inventory item. The first thing that you'll notice about the item in NetSuite is that it does maintain a large number of data, metadata if you like, but what that provides to us is an opportunity to do a lot of analysis and insights and manage quite flexibly how we want to look at the demand and the supply for our items. What I wanted to draw your attention to today is from an inventory detail perspective, very easily being able to see how we're going and what serial numbers or lot numbers, if that is the case, we have on hand. We can also then provide further breakdown of the status of the inventory. We've got the inventory number, we've got where it's located, we've got what's on hand and what's available. We might be interested in drilling into how an inventory or serial number has moved through the system, in which case we do have the ability to use the Save search engine and provide these reports so we can see when it was purchased, on which purchase order, when it was received into the warehouse, and then subsequently when it was sold, on which sales order, and when that actually went out the door. And so as a result, if there was something wrong with this particular serial number, if somebody phoned up and said, hey, there's something not quite right with my Kingston RAM, then we can look up the serial number directly inside NetSuite and identify the related sales order, and if need be, process a return and get a replacement out the door to them. So very quickly, without having to scroll through a whole heap of transactions, we can see from the item when that particular serial number came in and when it went out. So if we do need to have a conversation with our supplier, we can do that by going directly to the purchase order where that serial number was procured. With respect to bringing the serial numbers into the system, it is a really nice, easy to use interface. We've got here on our item 360 all of our open purchase orders, open sales orders. We can look at our historic item sales. We can look to identify trends. But what I wanted to demonstrate for you is the ability to receive in a serial number in multiple quantities, and also the ability to auto-generate those serial numbers as well. So let's say I've had this purchase order come through and now I'm ready to receive it in. When we're doing the receiving of serial or lot numbers, obviously we need to assign what that serial number is or what that batch or lot number is. So we get this fun little icon here to assign our inventory detail. If we did have a scanner, we could scan that in, but we do also have the ability to auto-generate those serial numbers as well. We can provide a prefix depending on our numbering convention. I'm bringing this into Sydney, so I'm going to prefix it with SYD. Our numbering convention is minimum of 8, and I know that we're up to number 21. I can assign a status, and then as opposed to me manually typing in however many I'm receiving, probably should have checked that first, about 20 I think, the system automatically generates all of those serial numbers for me, so it does save me time, and I can circumvent the necessary 25 lines of entering in that data. So that's a nice handy little feature just to speed up that receiving and also the fulfillment process, where we can add multiple serial numbers to a fulfillment when that's going out the door. Now, of course, it is important for us to understand how we're looking with respect to our inventory levels. So at an item level, we do have the flexibility to identify how we want the system to tell us when we're ready to reorder some of our inventory. We can look at implementing time phasing with respect to how often we need to procure these items based on our demand and our supply history. That will help bring into consideration some of that seasonality or peaks and troughs, and look to spread that out and make sure that we've always got enough stock on hand. It also identifies how much we should have on hand based on what our supply and future demand is looking like as well. So rather than us having to manually create a purchase order from scratch, we can come to one bulk interface which suggests to us our items that we should order based on our time phasing planning. If we've got some items that are a bit slower moving, not so much fast moving, not as much transaction history going through the system, we might actually just want to identify what our reorder point is for these particular items. Once we hit that reorder point and we're lower than our safety stock level, then the system's going to say, okay, time to reorder. And again, we can have alerts for this. We don't have to manually remember it. The system will identify that for us. So if you look at some of these cables here, we know that we've got 54 available. We've got 4 already on order. Our reorder point was 80. We've missed that, unfortunately. Our preferred stock level is 100. So the system's saying, okay, well, you need another 42 to get up to your preferred stock level, taking into consideration the 4 that are on order and the 54 that are already in hand or in stock rather. So again, we don't have to do the thinking. It's all of that information is consolidated into one place with our stock that's on hand, our stock that's already on order, and our reorder and preferred stock levels that we've implemented into the system. From a material requirements planning process, when we've gone through our forecasting process and the system has suggested, hey, based on what I can see coming up with your supply and demand fluctuations, I do suggest that you purchase, in this instance, 15 of this particular solar powered fan so that you can meet your demand. And we can review those planned orders, we can firm them up and then release them. And then as we do that, they come into our order items page here. So again, we're not looking in isolation. We do have a lot of different scenarios all consolidated into one interface. So we can create all of these purchase orders for all of these different circumstances in one go, just by hitting submit and marking all of these different sub-tabs. And another option that we have too is if we have organised a particular purchase contract with a supplier for a particular period of time and we want to draw down on that blanket purchase order, then we can also create the purchase orders for those in this page as well. So we're not just managing inventory levels with one strategy, we can maintain multiple strategies and then we're able to automatically create these purchase orders from one single interface. So bringing all of those procurement strategies into one and being able to break that down and review each of those scenarios as we go. From a process improvement perspective, there are some really cool features that NetSuite have introduced into the newer releases. It's NetSuite's entree into machine learning. And so what I wanted to show you from a demonstration perspective is what NetSuite calls the predicted risk functionality. And it's all based upon vendor performance calculations. Quite topical at the moment because it's all about identifying how late or early we expect a supplier is going to deliver goods to us and what our risk confidence percentage is for that. So if we take a look at Pacific Star Incorporated, unfortunately, we are 100% certain that they will deliver 6 days late. That's based on 14 orders that are in the system, so we can see the number of orders that have been used to actually arrive at that calculated predicted risk confidence and how late or early those orders are going to come in. The power of this calculation is that we can actually say with confidence that we should order 6 days earlier than we might otherwise would have. It means that we can be more confident that we are going to get our goods on time, and that when we are speaking to our customers, we are confident that yes, we can deliver based on your required by date, because we have placed our order a little bit earlier with our supplier because we know there's some challenges in our supply chain at the moment. This is something that will evolve over time. So as more orders are entered into the system, more receipts have been processed through NetSuite, we've got more data that we can leverage to actually give us more insights into how late or early a vendor may deliver the goods. Vendor or supplier, vendor's quite an American term. But what this then feeds into is our control tower dashboard. So we might pop a purchase order in and we are keeping a track of it, updating the expected receipt dates, keeping in touch with our suppliers, but helping us to be proactive is this predicted risk portlet. So NetSuite is saying, hey, there's 100% likelihood that this purchase order is going to be late. We can drill into the detail of this, and what that is going to tell us is, hey, on purchase order 404 for your gaming laptop coming into Perth, we are 100% confident that it is going to be 6 days late. And that ties back into that Pacific Star Incorporated we were looking at before with that vendor performance calculation. So what we can do is either add this recommendation to the snapshot of that particular inventory item, or we can just take a look at the snapshot of that inventory item and see, do we actually have demand coming up? Is that going to be an issue? So we can see here that we've got 12 on hand in Sydney, 14 on hand in Perth, and then we've ordered another 5. We don't currently have any demand quantity, so we can probably just let that one slide for the time being. But again, we've got a portlet, we can drill straight through to the item, we can see a full supply chain snapshot of that particular item, and it's all click through and related from that single portlet. So again, it saves us having to hunt through the system, but get all of that information in one place. Now, we talked a little bit about the work order process and also acknowledging that we do have finite resources on the floor, whether that be actual labour, people or machines. When we are releasing a work order and we are ready to schedule operations, we then get a manufacturing task scheduler that shows us what manufacturing tasks have been scheduled. Have they been assigned to a person or a machine? Are there any task conflicts that we need to keep an eye on? Have we got manufacturing tasks that aren't started and potentially they've lapsed their start date? And what's been completed to date? We can also configure non-working days, so it becomes a calendar of your operational resources, whether they be labour or machines. And then we start to see a visual representation of what that operation's looking like in each of our different work centres and across all of our manufacturing operations. And we can see that based on a particular assembly item as well, and also broken down by work order. So we can see for this particular assembly item, this is our solar powered fan. We've got a cutting, assembly and finishing operational task, and that's all scheduled for the week of the 22nd of May. Luckily, we don't have any task conflicts, but if we did, it would show us in red, which is, neurologically going to tell us to look into it and potentially look at pushing some of those manufacturing tasks out. So again, a visual representation, a consolidation of data into one easy to use, insightful graphical representation that's color coded as well. So again, a good way to be able to leverage NetSuite to perform insights and also to help you manage your overall manufacturing process. Now, we did talk about material requirements planning there as well. And what I wanted to show you is the planning workbench. So the planning workbench is the ability for us to determine which items we want to look at over which planning horizon and what types of exceptions we're wanting to keep an eye on. We can have multiple supply plan definitions, is what they're called here. So I have ring-fenced a supply plan definition just to look at a solar-powered fan. Some use cases of this could be you'll have a supply plan definition for your fast-moving inventory items or stock or assembly items. So making sure that you do have adequate supply to meet your demand. Then you might have a different definition for things that potentially move a bit slower. You don't need to look at them as frequently, and there may be different exceptions that you're looking out for. We can also get down to the level of identifying what types of supply and what types of demand we're wanting to look at. So if we are just looking at supply with respect to what's coming in on the water from overseas, we might just be interested in looking at inbound shipments. That's the ability to consolidate multiple purchase orders onto one container or inbound shipment, and then we can keep an eye on how that international supply is meeting our demand on the ground. Similarly, we might be interested to identify what our demand's looking like. So what's actually on demand, sales orders, work orders, what's forecasted, if we want to take a look at our safety stock. So you can quickly see here that there is a lot of flexibility as to how we want to see our supply and demand and what sort of strategies we want to use for a forecasting perspective. We are looking at a solar-powered fan, which inside NetSuite is an assembly item. So it does also show us all of the component items that are required to build that assembly. If we were to drill into what our supply and demand is looking like from a time phase perspective based on our planning horizon, we can click into this little interface here, and we'll look at it monthly so it's a bit easier to see. We can see we've got 25 on sales orders. So it actually gives us a bit of an insight into what our total demand's looking like. Do we have any planned work orders? Do we have any other types of demand that we need to consider? In this example, no. We do have a work order in play, so there's one there. We've got some safety stock that's bumping us up a little bit, and then we get some projections as to what our balance is looking like. Those negatives aren't looking too flash, so what we can do is look to plan some work orders to meet that shortfall in supply. If we come along here to our exceptions, we can see here in our supply for this particular component item, there are some planned work orders that it is suggesting. So we can look at firming up those planned work orders and releasing them to ensure that we address that shortfall in demand as well. We can even drill down a little bit further into how this will flow through into our demand for the future. So we do have a planned work order here. If we drill down into that, we can see that because we've got a sales order for 20, we don't currently have enough on hand. Once we release this planned work order, those 7 units from that work order have been pegged to this particular sales order. So we know that while at the moment we may have had a new order come through for 20 of our fans, we don't have enough on hand right now. We do have a work order that we can release, and once built, those 7 units will be allocated to this particular sales order. So not only does it show you any shortfalls in demand or supply, it does actually show you how that's going to be resolved by identifying planned work orders and also planned purchase orders. So again, a really nice way to consolidate information from across the breadth of the system, all the different modules from procurement, your order to cash processes, your safety stock levels, your manufacturing as well. All of that information is consolidated into this one interface, and it gives you the ability to strategize as to how much you really want to have on hand if you do need to plan some more work orders because you've got unseasonally high demand for a particular good. In our example here, our solar powered fan. So it is a very, very effective way to be able to quickly see what it is that we need to action, and it does suggest actions for you as well. And if we are just interested in seeing it by a particular location, we've got additional filters that we can work with. We've got additional filters for items, what categories we want to look at. So there is so much functionality here that we can leverage. And of course, we can use those leading practices to give us a head start and to give us some ideas as to how we can start to really unlock the potential of what it is that we get with the manufacturing edition of NetSuite. That is me for my demonstration this afternoon. So thank you very much for your time and for tuning in, and I hope it has proved useful.
That's awesome. Thank you very much, Chloe. Very comprehensive. It's fantastic to just give everybody the ability to just take a bird's eye view of NetSuite in action from a manufacturing platform. So that is also us for today. So if anybody does have any final questions, please feel free to drop them into the chat. If there's any more information of any of these topics that you wanted to review, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. You can get in contact with us via our website at fusion5.com.au or fusion5.co.nz, or you can just contact us directly as per our name. So thank you once again, everyone, for joining today. It's been great to have you, and we look forward to seeing you on our next webinar. Thank you.